Have you ever thought to yourself, why the heck doesn't this one specific motorcycle exist? Maybe it's an engine you want in a certain frame. Maybe it's a frame you want paired with a different style of bike. Hell, maybe you're just one of those freaks that wants a supercharged sport touring bike from Kawasaki that's kind of in that adventure cross style. In today's video, I wanted to talk about some bikes that I wish existed. We've seen a whole slew of new motorcycles from many manufacturers, new entry-level machines, new flagship machines, new definitions of past categories, new super sport bikes, the R9, the V2, maybe even that KTM RC990 if it will ever come out. And heck, the boundaries keep getting pushed more and more. There's new transmission options, e-clutch, automatic transmissions. There's a lot happening in motorcycling, so let's talk about some bikes that I wish existed that just don't. At the risk of sounding like a bit of a purist, I kind of miss real deal Japanese supermotos. The supermoto scene has been dominated by the European manufacturers for a while, specifically KTM and Husqvarna. They make some ridiculously race-ready supermotos, but the Japanese manufacturers have kind of just let this category slip for a while. And again, I did say at the risk of being a purist, because you may say, Yam, they currently sell a bunch of supermotos. What are you talking about? There's a new DRZ4 supermoto. There's the KLX 300 supermoto. What are you complaining about? Well, those bikes are kind of donkeys, if we're being honest. You know, they're relatively low state of tune, they're fun to ride, they're easygoing, but I'm talking real deal hard-edge supermoto machines. And can somebody explain to me why Honda doesn't make a supermoto out of their CRF 300 platform, and why Yamaha discontinued the WR250? I have to believe that there's some grand master plan here, right? And look, supermotos are kind of a relic of a bygone time. 15 to 20 years ago, sumos were all over the marketplace. Y2K was at a peak, a fever pitch of mid-2000s action sports combined with dirt bike ethos. They were certainly all the rage. And you even get like sort of boundary-defining supermotos nowadays, like the KTM 690 platforms. You have their new 390 supermotos, which isn't really a supermoto. You have the Ducati Hypermotard 698. It certainly seems like the style still resonates with people today, even though it is a relic of a bygone time. Here's what I would personally love to see. I'd love to see a factory offering from Yamaha or Honda or Kawasaki or Suzuki, anybody really, come out with an enduro and a supermoto variant of a 350 and a 500cc platform bike that has great service intervals and can work for a lot of different riders. You don't have to make something supremely hard edge like the KTM or Husqvarna products, but you also don't need to make something ridiculously donkey spec like the KLX 300. I think a wide variety of riders would appreciate something that's a little bit more fun, has some pep in its step, but doesn't require oil changes every 3 hours. And certainly with a 6-speed gearbox. Looking at you, Suzuki, with the DRZ4. What are we doing? So yeah, me personally, Yamaha WR350 and 500 and enduro and supermoto trim, chef's kiss. Moving on. Okay, this one is a no-brainer to me, and it's so frustrating that Ducati came out and said that they're just not gonna do it at all. They absolutely, in my opinion, should cross-platform the 698 platform. This is the new single-cylinder motor found in the Hypermotard 698. It's quite literally a Panigale 1299 V-twin engine that was lopped in half. Thing makes like 75 horsepower or something like that. It is a stonking single-cylinder engine. And then Ducati came out and said that they're just not going to do anything with it, that it was only for the Hypermotard. It was like literally the most bizarre side quest that Ducati's ever done. But I guess when you're winning basically every race series, you can just afford to make limited edition Lamborghini Panigales and one-off supermoto concepts. But seriously, imagine this engine in a Scrambler, in an enduro bike, in an ultra lightweight single-cylinder sport bike a la the Ducati Supermoto from the 90s. I mean, there's just so much you could do with this engine. You could put it in different states of tune for more torque or more horsepower. You could completely flip the not-so-super sport category on its head by putting a Ducati spin on it. You could make a fun enduro motorcycle with it. You could do an adventure bike with it. I think the reason Ducati doesn't do this is because it knows that it's going to cannibalize some of its existing twin-cylinder offerings. I mean, if there was an ultra lightweight adventure capable 698 platform motorcycle, why would you buy a Desert X? Why would you buy a Scrambler? Why would you buy a Panigale V2? Even though I think that it could certainly benefit from having 3 categories of sport bikes, right? Heck, if it were me, I'd call it Panigale V1. Call it a day. Maybe not V1. Panigale Mono. The Monogale. I don't know. It's just bizarre that they're not going to do it with anything else. I love that engine. I tested it in the Hypermotard 698, and I wish they would, but I don't think we're going to get it. All right, this next one is a bit of an oddball, but stick with me here. I just had the giveaway MT-07, I think 2 months ago by the time this video goes live, and I thought that that motorcycle, given that it works so well in the Tenere 700, given that it works so well in the XSR 700, why doesn't Yamaha make a CP2 style scrambler a la the Desert Sled? Hear me out. Imagine something with neo-retro flavor, the single round ring headlights, something that's a little more rugged with Pirelli Rally Scorpion, something like a Husqvarna Svartpillen 801, something that has kind of urban attitude with a bit of adventure mixed in with a tough attitude that's maybe like bronze and yellow, maybe some retro livery with it. Imagine that, but with the bulletproof reliability of a CP2 and the fun, lightweight nature of it. Wire-spoked wheels. I mean, I'm salivating just thinking about it because yes, I am a Scrambler simp and I own my Ducati sled, and that's basically what I'm asking for. But really, something to bridge the gap between the MT-07 and the Tenere 700. Something that is kind of gravel road capable. Maybe it has a 19-inch front end, maybe a little bit taller suspension, something that's a little bit fun and peppy, because every time I ride an MT-07, it's so lightweight, it's so willing. I'm always thinking, man, I wish I could put some knobbly tires on this thing and just go have some fun with it, you know? I think that a Scrambler style MT-07 would be really, really cool. It's a bike we're probably never gonna get, but I think it would be really sweet. Maybe the new XSR 700, based on the new generation MT-07, will have a little bit of that flavor that I'm talking about to differentiate it a little bit from the MT-07. I think that'd be pretty sweet. Okay, moving on. This is one that I'm curious why it hasn't been built yet, because it kind of feels like a total layup. It's a 975 Pan America. So Harley-Davidson has the 975cc Revolution Max engine inside of the Nightster. That's their entry-level cruiser platform. And they make the big dog 1250 Rev Max engine that you find in the Pan America. Now, I tested a Pan America somewhat extensively, and honestly, it's a great freaking motorcycle. It just blows my mind that Harley-Davidson is completely capable of making pretty freaking good bikes, and they just choose not to basically all the time. But imagine a Pan America 975, something a little more Tenere 700-esque, something a little more Touareg 660-esque, right? Something that has sporting intentions, but is maybe a little taller, a little lighter, a little easier to ride for the middleweight adventure category. They already have the engine, they already have the frame. You just shrink down the Pan America a little bit. It's still the same architecture. You're not going from V-twin to parallel twin or anything, so all the bolts, in theory, would made up in a similar way. It would just be a smaller Pan America. Maybe you reduce down the tech package a little bit, maybe make it a pure edition. I mean, look what BMW's done with that new, totally stripped down GS that they're releasing. Imagine that, but for a Harley-Davidson 975 Pan America, that could be pretty cool. And look, that's probably as close as we're ever gonna get to the Bronx, which is literally never happening. Please get that out of your brains. I'm fully convinced that was a psyop by Harley-Davidson to make you talk about them more. Even though I literally saw that bike in person at EICMA in 2019, I looked at it in a big glass box. It's real, they had them. I don't know why they never released them. We'll never know, but a 975 Pan America would be pretty sweet in my book. All right, this is another one, and I want you to bookmark this part of the video, and I've talked about this before, and I think it's gonna happen, but we will see. I think Suzuki's gonna make an updated GSXR 750. This is one that I've been talking about for about a year now, where I'm seeing the trends of the new generation supersport bike. And this is kind of what Suzuki does. They take existing platforms, architectures, and just kind of modify them, change them up a little bit, and make them fit for the new standard of whatever category they're trying to work in. Consider this, I mean, I think before Suzuki came out with that new 776cc parallel twin, they hadn't launched a new motor probably in like 10 years. The current GSXR 750 being sold on showroom floors today in America, that bike has not been changed since about 2008 or 2009. It's been 16 years since that bike has received any updates. I mean, for God's sakes, the GSXR 600 doesn't even come with ABS. So in my opinion, an updated GSX-R 750 to meet the moment of the new not-so-super sport category would be genius. You don't need to have it make a ton of top-end power because it only needs to make about 120 horsepower to compete with the R9, the V2. It has an inline 4, which everyone creams their jeans over nowadays because they don't really make them anymore. But what I think Suzuki should focus on is making it light. Try to lighten up that GSX-R 750, make it as sweet as it ever was, and people will really resonate with it. Give it creature comforts, give it cruise control, give it a TFT from the GSX S1000 GT, give it a new fly-by-wire throttle, stuff that makes it feel more 2025 spec. And honestly, a lot of the old hardware is still good and nobody's gonna know the difference. So you can put the same old brakes that it already had on it, maybe a new master cylinder if you really wanted to. You could sell that bike so easily. Give it great flashy colors, stuff like the V-Strom 800 DEs. They have that yellow and blue and stuff. Imagine a GSX-R 750 with a yellow and blue and, you know, giving it really that Suzuki character and energy, making it all yellow, I think would be really interesting. So to me, absolute no-brainer to make a new GSX-R 750. I think we're gonna see that in the next year or so. Suzuki's been hinting that they're gonna come back in the new super sport category, and it's gotta be a GSX-R 750. It's just gotta be. It's gotta be. Okay, so in BMW world, somewhere I don't usually like to go, the one place BMW has really been missing is in the beginner bike category. And you might say, well, yeah, that's because they're a premium manufacturer. They're more like Ducati, where they don't like to make stuff under $10,000 because it devalues the brand image. But then I would say, what about the 310s? Do you guys remember those? I certainly do. Those were awful bikes. I did not like them very much at all. They were these Indian-made bikes from like 10 years ago that just did not work very well. They were anemic, they felt cheap, and they just had a BMW badge on the side of it, but really that's the only reason it felt like a BMW. Now, we're seeing this new F450 GS concept, the small, lightweight, petite, enduro ADV style thing that's going to compete with the Ibex 450 and the new baby adventure category. I know you guys hate it when I call it that, but that's what they are because the F450 GS literally looks like a baby version of the Big Daddy GS. So come at me in the comments. I don't really care. It's the baby adventure category. It is what it is. But imagine this new 450 platform being put into a roadster, maybe something like the Triumph Speed 400s, maybe even something more sporty and fully fared to have a baby component to the S1000RR. Maybe even something in the 450 segment to compete against the Aprilia RS 457, the CF Moto 450, and the Ninja 500. This is an established category that BMW could go after if they had a brand new engine to come and play. And it seems like a 270-degree crank, tiny, small bore 450cc motor is the way things are going in this category that you can then cross-platform it as well. I think it's a total no-brainer for BMW to do this, and I hope we see it because then we'd have a small displacement BMW to get excited about. All right, another category that has kind of gone by the wayside, but I think could definitely come back, and it's one that I've been thinking about for a while. It's Japanese muscle cruisers, man. Bring them back. What are we doing? There's be so many sick Japanese muscle cruisers. You had the Yamaha VMAX. I mean, for God's sake, 1700cc V4 making 200 horsepower. The Kawasaki Eliminator. I mean, come on, there were so many cool ones. The Honda Magna, the Valkyrie. I mean, there were some really sweet bikes from back in the day. And now this category is basically just the Triumph Rocket 3 and the Ducati Diavol. I've been saying for years that Kawasaki should just make an H2 Eliminator. I think it would be so sick to have a supercharged inline 4cc muscle cruiser, and they have precedents for it, right? The Eliminator line used to be 4-cylinder bikes. Yamaha, I mean, they'll never do this, but making a new VMAX would be really, really cool. I just think it would be cool. I don't think anybody would buy it, but it would be really cool. And I mean, Metro Cruisers nowadays, they're just kind of milquetoast. They're kind of boring. You know, they're just like these big lumpy air-cooled things, the Boulevards, the Vulcans. They're just kind of like there. They're not that really interesting, you know, because they try to just copy Harley-Davidson's playbook instead of sticking to what made them really good. The Japanese are great at building performance machines, and I think their cruisers should match that as well. There's no reason to try to replicate what Harley's doing or what Indian's doing when you can make something totally new and different to fit a new market. Because to me, the guy who buys a Rocket 3 or a Diavol is not cross-shopping a Harley Davidson. It's a totally different kind of guy. The guy who gets a Rocket 3 or a Diavo is a former speed freak that had a leader bike back in the early 2000s and now says, well, I want torque, but I still really want to go fast, and no one's ever taken that away from me. All right, next up is the fact that Kawasaki is still running the outdated 650. I mean, this is, to me, inexcusable. It's crazy. And Kawasaki is sort of like the most unpredictable OEM. They'll come out with 399cc inline 4 motors that nobody asks for and doesn't really compete with anything. They'll release supercharged motorcycles and then cross-platform them into a freaking naked bike. That's insane. They literally sell a hybrid motorcycle. Nobody's doing that. Nobody has that. Granted, the word selling is doing a lot of the heavy lifting there because they're not really selling any of them, but they still made a hybrid bike. That's pretty cool. So why on God's green earth, and somebody in the comments can maybe explain this to me other than just saying, oh, it's R&D costs. Why on God's green earth does Kawasaki still make a 650 from 2005 that makes 67 horsepower and has a 180-degree crank when everything else in the category has moved on, eclipsed it, and is better? The 776cc GSX 8R motor, better. The CP2, better. Honda's 755cc parallel twin with the 270 crank, better. The Aprilia, do I even need to say more? The 660, way better. It's just, to me, inexcusable that Kawasaki is still doing this. They gotta do something different other than just running the fact that the Ninja 650 is the cheapest bike in the segment by a couple grand, but to me, that doesn't move the needle enough. It's not an interesting bike to ride. It still makes that lawnmower-y sound, and I think that the Ninja 650 lineup should probably grow up into a Ninja 700 lineup or a Ninja 7R or something like that, maybe to fit this new not-so-super sport moment. Kawasaki still makes the ZX6R, which many people think is way better than all these not-so-super sport bikes. It's a very different type of motorcycle. It's not nearly as comfortable or as modern or as interesting to ride. It's just your classic 600cc inline 4. I still think Kawasaki should maybe, I don't know what the sales figures look like, but maybe kind of sunset that and make a new Ninja 700, a Ninja 7R to compete in this new segment. That transitions us nicely into Honda a little bit. They have the CB750 that's coming from Europe to America. And to me, this is gonna kind of confuse their lineup a little bit because now they're gonna have a CB650 with the 4-cylinder engine, naked bike, E-clutch technology, and then a CB750 Hornet right next to it, parallel twin, almost the same amount of horsepower. This is now a very confused lineup to me. And I think that the best thing Honda could do would be to create a not-so-super sport bike based on the new parallel twin, because then it would match everything else everyone's doing. Then Honda would have the CB750 Hornet, the Transalp, and then some sort of CBR 750R with the parallel twin to compete against the R7 and the Aprilia RS660. And I really think the Honda could split the difference between those two motorcycles beautifully, because that 755cc motor is bigger than the 660, so it makes better torque. It has very similar top-end characteristics like the 660. It actually revs out pretty good. It's a short-stroke engine, and it makes a little more power than the R7 as well. I think to the tune of 15 more horsepower. So if Honda can release it with a somewhat competitive price, don't price it like an RS660, right? Price it closer to an R7, maybe make it a little under 10,000 bucks. It should do pretty darn well and make it that cool Honda styling that everyone loves. And, you know, I think if you want to reach back into the Honda catalog, you should just get the Hawk name to come back and release the Honda Hawk 750, then boom. You can go ahead and make some outdated Hawk Tua jokes right there. I don't know, it's probably fit. The other thing to think about there too is that E-clutch technology would certainly roll out to all these machines too. So imagine a Honda Hawk 750 with E-clutch, and then even a Transalp with E-clutch would be really interesting too. So those are some easy moves I could see Honda doing that would really kind of increase their market share. All right, and the last manufacturer I wanted to talk about is Royal Enfield. People think that I despise Royal Enfield. I think they're fine, I think they're fun. And the one bike missing from their lineup, in my opinion, that's sorely needed is a new liquid-cooled 650cc. I think it's high time that Royal Enfield figured out that the liquid cooling is certainly the way to go. Yes, the 650 platform is charming, it's characterful, it's old school, it's interesting. There's a lot to love about the Interceptor 650s. But to me, it's high time that they received liquid cooling and maybe looked a little bit more like Triumph's Bonneville, where they have the radiator blacked out and vertical inside of the frame so that the aesthetic of the machine still stays the same while having the performance increases that comes with liquid cooling. The fact that Royal Enfield released the new Sherpa 450 motor, it was liquid cooled and they did everything they needed to do with that one, tells me that they're probably considering liquid cooling the 650 platform and modernizing and updating that one as well. Once you have a liquid cooled 650cc motor, it kind of opens you up to other varieties as well. You could then make a Himalayan 650 with a liquid cooled motor in it as well. You could make something that's a little more sports touring almost, or kind of long distance touring. You could make your classic Interceptors and your Continental GTs. I think the doors start to open a little bit more once you have a more modern, modular, liquid cooled parallel twin that you can cross platform to different machines, rather than just having that kind of characterful air and oil cooled 650 that's currently found in the Interceptor and Continental GT models today. Well, boys, let me know your thoughts. What bike's missing from the market right now? What would you like to see? Did I cover anything in here? Personally, for me, the one I'm most excited about would be Ducati doing something with that 698, but I don't think they will. They came out publicly and said they're not going to, so we're just kind of sitting around and waiting for it, you know. Thanks so much for checking out today's video. I truly do appreciate it. We'll catch you in the next one. See you later. Wake up! You're dreaming! You're dreaming! Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! None of this is real! None of it's real! None of it's real! Wake up! Keep watching Amy Noob.